teach courses in optimization and governance. And my research is more like I described most of it on social networks. Now on to participatory budgeting. So participatory budgeting is this process that a bunch of cities use, and they use it for small amounts of money in the US, like $1 million, $2 million, and they put that to direct vote by the public. And so we have a platform for voting on in these elections. Around it's been used around 50 times. Vallejo uses it. Um, then New York has used it. Long Beach has used it.
What has New York used it for?
So New York used it for a small participatory budgeting process. There, I think around maybe 10 of their districts participated, and they took a small amount of money, like 500K, $1 million. New York has been continuing it over the last several years. They used our platform for the pilot. Then in Europe and in South America, these processes are often bigger. So they might use it not for a small amount of the city's budget, but for a large amount of the city's budget. You can also imagine this process being advisory. So I think the real excitement is when you use this process for the whole of the city's budget, a large chunk of the city's budget, but it's advisory. Just getting people to weigh in.
Sure.
So the platform can handle all these use cases. It's never gone down. It's quite stable. It's at pbstanford.org. So part of the reason we want to do this is because when you make people vote on an entire city budget, you force them to internalize trade-offs. Otherwise, what happens is people are themselves are in this mode where they have their favorite ideas, but they really haven't had the time or haven't really been like given an interface where they can balance their pet ideas against all the other priorities of the city, which might also be important to them. So someone might say, well, I want to spend more money on biking, on bike lanes. But when they see the entire city budget, they might realize, no, but I also want to spend money on parks. These other things are also important to them. And that sort of helps people come to a shared understanding of it. It does not resolve all our differences, but at least it does not resolve the difference between me and you, but at least it resolves all the inconsistencies in my own thinking. Because I can't say I want everything. I will decide what's my priority.
Well, I think that's what the city does right now. Right? As you say, we want everything.
I mean, everyone wants everything, but when you force people to actually say, okay, well, here's the amount of money, allocate it the way you want. This is the way we currently allocate it, and you have to be very careful to make the process advisory. So the way the cities in the US have used it so far is that the process is not advisory; it's mandatory. I mean, legally it might be advisory, but the mayor or the alderman or the councilman commits to saying this is what we're going to do. But it's for a small amount of money. I feel like it should be for a much larger pot of money, but it should be advisory. It should be a feedback tool to the council. So I can give you a demo of the platform. I can describe.
Just because I remember I was talking about this a while back, right? And when have you ever talked to the city manager or anyone else?
So I think you made an introduction, and I followed up, but they didn't respond. And I'm not quite sure whether I should follow up more. Maybe a stronger endorsement. Maybe like.
You know what would be good is we have these finance committee meetings. Have you ever attended any of those?
No, but I'm assuming that for the general public, right? Would there be an opportunity to actually speak there?
You could actually speak there, yeah.
Will I actually get like a predetermined speaking slot where I sign up for? Is there like a notion of coming in for 5 minutes, taking 2 minutes to demo our platform, 2 minutes to say what I say, and I will stick to 5 minutes?
I think you could definitely do that. Yeah.
How do I sign up for?
You just show up and fill out a card. And you can present slides. People have done that.
I see.
So you could definitely do that.
Okay.
So
maybe that's what I'll do.
Okay.
And those are probably published somewhere on the city's webpage.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming that if you go to those finance committee meetings, I'm assuming that so many people show up to those meetings and they say so many things that nobody's actually paying attention to what they're saying.
No. Our finance meetings, almost no one shows up.
I see.
No, because I think the finance stuff is really complicated, right? And most people aren't very passionate about it. So almost no one shows up, actually.
Okay, so maybe that's a good idea. Just show up to a finance committee meeting.
Yeah.
Do you normally go?
Yeah, I'm on the finance committee, So I think the next one's canceled though. So let me see, the next one.
If I go, could you like put in a word or something for me, like saying, I mean, my worry is that, so I've been to not Palo Alto's meetings, but I've been to many city steering meetings. But as part of the platform, we often go to these city meetings, city council meetings. And I get the sense that
let me just look at my next
not everybody's taking those meetings seriously.
Oh, that's
not true. Everybody's taking every speaker seriously.
Oh, I'm not sure about that, but we don't have that many speakers. These meetings are very sparsely attended. Yeah, October 2nd is canceled, but but there might be one.
The 16th.
Yeah.
I put it on my calendar.
Yeah.
Sure.
Definitely. Right now, I don't know, but
It might get cancelled too, but if it doesn't get cancelled, I'm sure.
You should show up. Yeah, definitely.
So I can be somewhere else on the 16th. I'll work it out.
Okay.
Maybe I'll ask them if I can send a student in my step.
That's so
To
good.
one of the events.
Yeah, that's so good. Do you have like a PhD students who are working on this?
Yeah, so we have 6 PhD students.
Okay.
Some of them work on the more the theoretical side. So we are what you would call a vertical group. By vertical group, I mean we are the ones who really sort of decide the philosophical underpinnings of this work. Like why are we even doing it? Like the kind of thing that I mentioned, one of our objectives is to make sure people can internalize their own inconsistency. But then we also develop the algorithms and the theorems. But then we also build the platforms and deploy them. So we do like end-to-end.
Yeah.
So some
this kind of work I'm truly interested because like I do think that for most people the finance is so opaque and complicated that most people don't follow it.
And you can make it very easy and transparent. Like the big things people are used to understand. People will understand these bigger things if you explain to them. This is how we spend our money. This is what we spend it on.
Yeah.
And so I would love to show up.
Did you see the OpenGov stuff we have?
No.
Maybe,
I did last time, but not recently.
We have like some of the stuff on there, but it's very high level.
And so maybe I'll come with come with like a demo of how we could show this visualization.
And you can download some of the data, right? It's not very fine grained, but you can see some of it. But
and so
because I think to me there's got to be a better way to engage with the community than what we're doing right now.
Yeah, and it's good. The problem is that people are very reactive. So there's a lot of reaction to what people don't like. But you're not hearing from, you're just hearing from an opposition to something that's being done. You're not hearing like their entire opinion about a budget or a policy. So that's one platform. Then there's a political scientist at Stanford, his name is Jim Fishkin. He's very well known in his own circles. And he's developed this method that he calls a deliberative poll. Deliberative poll.
Poll?
Yeah. Okay. So instead of polling people to say, okay, well, what should San Francisco's budget look like? What San Francisco's priority should be? Instead, he presents a lot of briefing material which is completely factual. Then he puts them in a round table, and like 10 or 12 of them, divides them into 10 groups of 10 each, and they talk to each other. And they talk to each other in a very specific format. There's an agenda to discuss the pros and cons of the issue. They talk to each other. And then they come up with questions to ask, more questions to ask of the experts, and then there's an expert session again. And then he polls them. And he has shown that the results that he gets from the polls at the end are sort of very high quality, very representative. They're not knee-jerk reactions of people. So another thing that we are doing is we are building a platform which he can use to scale this. So right now it's hard for him because he has to get a lot of people together. 10 people have to be physically in a room. He has to get a moderator. We are building like a Google Hangout style platform, which and the platform moderates people. So the platform makes sure everyone is speaking roughly equally. People are not insulting each other. They're discussing the agenda and not going off agenda. So that's the other thing we're doing.
Yeah. By the way, is this something where like, because it seems like staff is very reluctant, at least as far as I can tell, on this. Is there a way that you guys can do this independently, like where you guys can load the budget in and kind of run?
Yeah, absolutely. So in fact, we do everything independently. So our platform is free and open source.
Okay.
Every city that we have done it with, they're using our platform. They're not using their platform. They don't even do any integration.
Yeah, because I think right now, like, the city doesn't want to do this for some reason, right? So like, but I do think that this seems like a good tool that at least allows, our constituents to kind of understand what's going on, right?
But the problem with doing it, so we can do it independently, right? But I don't want to do it in opposition to the city staff.
Yeah, I don't think the city staff will oppose it. I just think that they're kind of.
I mean, they have to at least endorse it. They have to say like, okay, it's a good tool.
Yeah.
If someone, they can't be like reluctant about it. It's fine if they say, well, we don't want to do the work.
But they never offered to meet, huh?
You made an introduction, right?
Yeah.
And then I checked again with them. Yeah. And I really haven't pushed them very hard. Maybe I should push them harder. or maybe like if you could actually make an introduction saying that'd be very useful to me.
I've tried, and
so I'll show up a
I think that would be good. I mean, I think it'd be good to show like a little demo, right? And you know, we get most finance meetings we have no speakers. Like nobody comes to talk to us. So most finance meetings are now council meetings are different. Council meetings are a lot of so that's probably not the best place.
Yeah.
But our finance meeting, I think that'd be a really good thing for you to kind of speak about this, like show a demo.
Yeah.
And because I think it's good to get community involvement on this way.
Okay, that's what I do. I'll come and I'll show a demo.
Sure.
But in terms of doing it,
but is there anything new that since the last time we talked?
Yeah, so we have this platform. We have this new platform for deliberation, and our current plan is. So currently we're in talks with like Kyoto and Seoul, and they want to use. They definitely want to do deliberative polling.
Okay.
And they're in conversations also. We use our online platform, so we can do deliberative polling from home.
Okay.
And then we are hoping, again, it's like hope.
Yeah.
We are hoping to do a large-scale deliberative poll for the presidential election. And so deliberative poll, again, is just like you poll people, but you poll them after they've had a substantive back and forth conversation.
Yeah.
Right?
Sometimes we run polls here in our office, right? Just because we want to get people's opinion. But the problem is there's like, we have the link to all the information, but it's like so much for people to read. People don't like.
Yeah.
Feel
So
like
you get people's immediate reaction.
Yeah.
It's a deliberative poll, you get people's real reaction. And also, like since we talked last time, we have open source the platform. The usage has really taken off. So a lot of cities now use it. I think last time we talked to you, there were like maybe 4 or 5 cities using it. And now I think they'll be close to 50 elections. Then we're expanding to beyond cities. So we're starting to talk to Stanford, and Stanford students, the students at Stanford just did a pilot where they use our platform as a test this year, and they want to gradually move to our platform. So because the students also have their own budget for their student loans.
I see.
And there's some dorms in Stanford. So it's expanding. The idea is expanding.
So could this be used for like, so for instance, you know, we're thinking about like, do we want to fund this project or not, right? Could it be used for something like that?
I don't think so. The problem when you ask people, so the problem, at least in our experience, the problem when you ask people a budgetary question without having some kind of a limit on what they can do.
No, but like, because, okay, so at the last finance committee meeting, I made the suggestion of, you know, for every time we go over the budget, we should cut something else, right? So it's like we develop the budget balance.
Yeah.
But, you know, could this be used where people can, you know, maybe staff offers up, okay, so, you know, if you go over budget on this item, then we need to cut either one of these 4 or 5 things. Right?
Absolutely.
Something like that, where
Absolutely.
Where
in general, what we felt is as long as there's no trade-off, it's very dangerous to ask people whether you should do this project or not.
There's no trade-off. Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. I do agree with you. I think, in fact, that's one of the things I suggested, but I think get a lot of traction, unfortunately. But I suggested that we, you know, when we go over budget or something, that we find a conventional cut immediately, right? So we know what the trade-off is.
Yeah.
But I think I had a good reaction. So.
Or at least at the very least, people should understand that if this is what could happen. So even if it's not immediately going to happen, if like whenever someone proposes a project, they also say these could be the potential impacts of going on.
So do other cities do that? Do other cities, like when they go over budget on an item, do they also like try to balance it with cuts on something else, or is that not typical?
So I mean, cities are not allowed to go over budget.
Well, like the city, like for us, what we do is we have a budget stabilization reserve.
Yeah.
So we just take money out.
Just take money from the reserve. I think that's what most cities do.
I know. But I mean, what I'm saying though is that, have you ever seen a city where like when it goes over budget, they try to find something else to cut?
Not the ones that we have got. They do that at the beginning. When they make the budget, they try to remain within budget. I haven't really seen anyone who tries to immediately, in a very direct way, say, if we can go over budget on this issue.
Why not? Why don't cities do that?
Um,
Because it seems like that's a good time to do it. Because if you're going to go over budget, that means it's got to be important enough that you want to take away from something else.
Yeah. I think it's partly because a lot of these things get placed, a lot of these extra going over budget happens because of citizen activism. Like citizens want you to spend money on something.
That's true. Yeah.
And no citizen activist group, no lobbying group would want to be put in a position where they're suggesting a cut to something else because that puts them in opposition to somebody else. So as long as I say I want more money for parks.
But what about staff doing it, right? So like I understand that group would not do it, right?
Yeah.
And they probably couldn't do it because they don't know what to cut. But couldn't staff make recommendations like say, hey, okay, if we're going to go over budget on this project, that means that we need to cut. Here's 5 things that we could cut.
Yeah.
So what do you want to do?
I mean, the closest I've seen really is I normally I don't vote for any bond measures, but I think I'm going to vote on Measure Z.
Oh, I do. So you live in Palo Alto?
I live in Sanford campus,
okay.
but because it's a school district, I think because it's a school district, I think we'll also get taxed. I think because it's for the school district, we also.
So why are you going to vote yes on Z?
Because in Measure Z, when it says you're going to raise $400 something million, $50 million, and I was very reluctant because it said a bond, but then it specified exactly the amount of property tax increase that is going to have to pay for it. I don't actually mind spending the money on school. I also don't mind paying extra. I don't like this idea that we'll float a bond and we're not going to immediately raise taxes to pay for it. So, but I think that's the closest I've seen. I mean, even that's quite creditable. That there's a measure where they're floating a bond and they're specifying exactly how much they're raising. They're immediately paying for the bond. And that's the closest I've seen to people actually paying for these things as they go along. Are you in favor of Measure C? Are you?
So I have kids in school, right? And the reason why I moved here was really great schools. So I think keeping the school strong is very, very important to me. I don't follow it as closely as maybe some people do. So in general, I think we want really strong schools.
Yeah.
The details of Measure Z, I don't know the details, but it seems like generally the right idea. But I don't know. Have you looked at it closely? I haven't.
I looked at it closely enough to see how they're going to pay for it.
Oh, okay.
So for me, the bigger concern is, to me, it seems like it's okay for people to spend the money that they want to, as long as they have it.
Yeah.
I'm like more worried about the city spending money that it doesn't.
Oh, we do that.
Right, but at least in this particular case, right, they're raising a bond, and they're saying exactly they're raising the money via a bond, but they're immediately raising property taxes to pay for the bond.
Yeah.
And to me, that sounds sufficiently responsible. That I'm already like that.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah.
And people can decide whether it's worth them paying an extra. Like for us, it's going to be $700 any year extra. Everyone can decide whether it's worth paying $700 a year extra for the school or not. If it's not, then don't do it.
So $700. So each property would pay $700 a year or more.
No, I think it's 0.034%.
Okay, but it's about $700 roughly for someone, or
sorry, 0.34%. 0.034. Yes, for us it's going to be $700.
Okay.
I think. Yes, around $700.
So it's like the price of a new iPhone.
It's like the price of a new iPhone, and so people can. I mean, I can totally imagine people not wanting to do it. I'm not judging anyone who doesn't want to do it. I'm not judging anyone who wants to. I'm only judging the people who want to do it but don't want to pay for it.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is like.
That happens a lot, right?
That happens a lot, but like. Yeah. So I think the problem with that democracy is that the day we pose questions, we don't pose good questions. It's a good question to pose. We want to raise this bond for school and pay for a new iPhone every year. Yeah. That's a great way to pose the question. Yeah. So and just to say, do you want money for schools? What kind of question is that? I mean, of course I want money for schools.
Yeah. So, I do think you're right that you have to have the trade-off. Right? Trade-off. So your trade-off could be like, hey, do I want a new iPhone every year, or do I want to have, money for the schools, right?
Yeah. And someone who can't afford to pay might say, well, I can't afford to pay.
Yeah.
And then the city can collectively make a decision. And
I've I know one family, like the city raised its utility rates. I'm not sure if you don't get Palo Alto doesn't cover you guys, right? In terms of utilities.
I mean, it covers us, but via Stanford. I mean, Stanford has a bulk contract with Palo Alto.
Oh, for those utilities?
I think for electricity we get it. No, we don't get. No, I think we get PG&E.
Okay. Anyways, so Palo Alto we raised our rates, right?
Yeah.
And you know how Palo Alto has like partners in education. Like you asked them, so like we have 2 kids, we donate for both kids, right? But you know, when family told me that after the last utility raise, right, which isn't that much money, right? But well, I mean, it depends on what you consider a lot of money, but it's, you know, it's something. They said, no, we're not going to donate to Pine anymore. Like, and so like I feel concerned something like sometimes like if you use utility rates, sometimes it takes money from something else,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that trade-off is anyway. I heard the bell ring, so I'm assuming that means the bell ringing means that you have another person.
That's right. That's right. Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I show up for the finance committee or I'll send a student. Either way.
Sounds good.
Thank you.